Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since I've posted anything. I've been kind of visiting family here in the States, catching up with family time, waiting to travel back. I'm about 20 days away from flying out to Japan and then from there to Thailand. So today I want to have a conversation about travel insurance. The last time I left off with a video, it was about things to do to be ready to travel, the things you need and what to expect. So now we're going to talk about travel insurance, which I think you must have it. There is some things you have to be very alert to, is the word I'm trying to use, I guess, because insurance companies didn't get to be uber rich by paying out every claim that came across. It's like the people say about casinos, right? Casinos didn't get built by paying out winners all the time. So insurance is a gamble. It's something that you may not ever need it, but it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So every time I travel, I get it. But I've learned a lot over the past 3 or 4 years of buying travel insurance. Things that I thought I was buying, which I really wasn't. So we'll talk about some of that, what you can look out for, some pitfalls, some good things to look for, some coverage that might be instrumental to you if you're traveling abroad, especially. Some things that I've learned along the way that I thought I was getting that I really wasn't. Also, how important it is to have documentation when you're ready to submit a claim. So this time, I decided to go with my American Express travel insurance company because they had a really good rate. And I just did, instead of a 1-year plan, I just did a length of my trip from September, coming up on the 28th, until sometime about the mid-April, I think it was, for next year. So a little over 6 months for my trip. So some things that were important to me was emergency medical. Travel insurance comes with a lot of different things. It comes with trip cancellation, trip interruption, trip delay, baggage loss and delay protection, emergency medical, dental expenses, trip delay, travel accident protection, and travel assistance. So all of those have different meanings when it comes to the insurance and how they interpret it. So the most basic one is trip cancellation, right? So I looked over my policy, which I have several pages. It's very thick. And trip cancellation and coverage will give you some options when you purchase it. On number one, it's going to ask you how much is your trip, and it's going to only be good for non-refundable items, like if you bought a non-refundable ticket, airplane ticket, or non-refundable hotel rooms. Those are the things, if your trip gets canceled, that it should cover. But once again, you have to have good documentation of all that. Trip cancellation covers you up, or on this particular policy that I have with American Express, covers me up until the day I depart the United States. So in other words, if my plane was to cancel, I could file a claim up until the 28th when my flight is scheduled to leave the U.S. I could file a claim for, here's what canceled. I'd have to get proof from the airlines, and all this stuff would have to be scanned and faxed in or emailed in, or ever how they ask you to send it. So you have to keep a lot of documentation. Some insurance companies have apps. My previous insurance company, Allianz, they had an app where I could submit claims and stuff. This one, my American Express one, does it. The American Express one was a lot cheaper than the Allianz was, but for what coverage I'm getting, I thought it did good for me. So to go back to trip cancellation, so if my trip cancels, if the airlines say, I'm sorry, there's been a strike, or we've had problems with the aircraft, we've got to cancel and we'll try to reschedule you, whatever, you can say, go back to your insurance company, say, okay, my trip canceled, here's the non-refundable airfare ticket, here's where I was on my hotels, and they will cover you up to a certain amount of what you had put on the policy that you want to be covered for. So after your trip takes off, after you depart, and now you start getting into trip interruption and trip delays. So like if you get over to your next airport and there's a delay and they say, okay, your plane from Detroit to Tokyo has been delayed for mechanical problems, we're going to put you up in a hotel, if you have to have food and all that. Those are all items that it's my understanding what covers under trip delays. Same things with baggage. If your baggage gets lost, there's X amount of dollars that will cover up to that, depending on what plan you purchased. The next one for me is emergency medical and dental. It'll cover you up to a certain amount on each one of those. Dental. If you have a covered dental issue, it'll cover you up to X amount. Like in my policy, I think it was $750 in case I had an emergency accident. Fell off a motorbike, got in a wreck, somebody run over me, fell down some stairs, whatever, and I had to have a tooth fixed. They are supposed to cover that under that emergency dental expense. Emergency medical, to me, the way I interpret that is if I had an appendicitis, or if I got into once again, an accident, a wreck, somebody ran over me, I fell down the stairs, whatever, broke my arm, whatever, you would have to submit a claim for them to cover that. Emergency evacuation, if you're in a country where the medical is not sufficient, the hospitals for your injuries, or maybe you're in a back home or something, the emergency evacuation will get you to the nearest hospital or facility that will be able to perform what you need medically, and that's how it covers that. If you need to be evacuated back to the States, that's also very important. I've got $1 million worth of coverage on this one. From what I understand, that's very expensive. If you had to be medically evac from, say, China, Japan, Thailand, somewhere back to the U.S., that would be very pricey. So I got $1 million worth of coverage on my policy to cover that. Now, if you have pre-existing condition coverage, which you can get, that's very limited. They'll also have a waiting period for you. Some of it's 90 days before they'll cover you. Some of it is 180 days. I will tell you that on the pre-existing medical, they will try to tie everything that you put in a claim for back to your pre-existing. So if you take blood pressure medication and maybe you had to have some medical work done because of, I don't know, maybe it's something internally, that you had to have. The insurance company is going to try to not cover that because they're going to try to tie that to the pre-existing condition. They're going to say, well, we're not going to cover this blood pressure medication because your doctor overseas said you had high blood pressure because we see that you're taking this heart medication for your heart, so that's a pre-existing condition and your blood pressure is tied to that. You see where I'm going with this? So you're going to have to fight for your claims, especially when pre-existing conditions. Now, in my particular policy, the emergency medical part was only good for 60 days. So my trip's going to be a lot longer than 60 days. So after 60 days, the insurance company says, okay, we're not on the hook for you anymore. So if anything happens to you, if you have an emergency medical situation, your appendix burst and stuff like that, we're only going to cover you for 60 days. My last policy covered me for 90 days. I'd bought an annual policy last time, and I thought it was going to cover me the whole year that I was gone. No, once you read the fine print, it says pre-existing conditions are covered after a look-back period, which is a waiting period. In that case, it was 90 days. After the 90 days, we'll cover you for 90 days of your trip. So 90-day waiting period, 90 days coverage, that's only 6 months. And out of 6 months, you're only covered for 3 of those months. Then after that, you're on your own. So my trip was 273 days, and I really was only covered for emergency medical and pre-existing condition for 3 months. So look hard and close at what you're buying. So for me, if you buy non-refundable tickets to get cheaper airfare and stuff, it's worth it to buy your policy. If that's the only thing that's you're really concerned about is your non-refundable items, baggage loss and stuff like that, most of the times if you have to be put up in if it's the airline's fault, the reason why your trip is delayed or canceled, they'll put you up in a hotel normally. But sometimes you could be overseas and your bags not catch up with you and you don't have any clothes. You have to go buy new clothes. So that's where the baggage claim will come in. Once again, keep all your receipts. Ask the airlines for proof that the trip was delayed, whatever the case was. So you can present all that to your insurance company. You know, and with the next one, you know, that's the baggage loss and delay protection. It'll be a certain percentage. In my case, I think it was 300 or 500 a day, something like that, for X amount of days, up to a certain limit, like $1,500. When you exceed that limit, you're done. They cut you off. Travel accident, you know, if you have an accidental death or dismemberment, this is good through the whole policy. If I was to have an accident, somebody, like I said earlier, somebody run over me, or I get in an automobile accident and stuff like that, you're covered for that. But if you have a dismemberment, an arm, a leg, an eye, or ear, whatever, they're going to pay you X amount of dollars, whatever's on your schedule, for that loss of that limb. You also need to put a beneficiary on your policy. And you also need to have the repatriation of remains in case something happens, you get killed abroad. Your remains, you want them sent back to the States or wherever you're from. That just like the emergency medical evacuation, that could be pricey. So you want to make sure that you're covered for repatriation of remains. And in my policy that I currently have with AMX, that's covered up to $1 million. That's the repatriation of remains, emergency medical evacuation, all that's covered in that same $1 million worth of coverage. So if something happened to me and my wish was to have my remains sent back to the States, to my family, then that's covered under this policy. Once again, having someone that you back home that knows about your policy, has your policy number, and they know what's happened to you, for them to be able to go in there and make the claim. Also a beneficiary, you know, that's on your policy. So if you have a catastrophic event, that's going to be able to pay them for what the beneficiary amount would be. So travel assistance is something that normally you can get with just about any travel agent or credit card that you book with. It's basically calling them up, hey, you know, I need to go here, what do you suggest? You know, for me, I use American Express credit card. I can call Free Concierge and they can even make reservations for me and stuff like that. They can also give you assistance for medical and legal referrals. Hey, I'm here in Thailand. This is the province I'm in. I've had an accident. I need to go to a medical facility. What do you recommend? And they will give you that information. It's also important to give that information to your loved ones back home before you leave, so that if you're unconscious or you don't have any help over there, and they were able to contact your person back in the States that you have as a contact, then they can take your policy number and all that, and talk to the people in the travel assistance department and try to get everything set up for you from abroad. So, like I said, this one little policy that covers me for about 6 months is, I don't know, I think it's like 40 something pages, and it's full of small print. So you just have to make sure you're reading the small print. And like I said, one of the eye-openers for me is when I bought coverage for a year, an annual policy, and I told it I wanted pre-existing conditions covered. I thought was good for the whole policy. After reading the small print, I found out the pre-existing condition is 90 days only. After that, you're on your own. On this policy, it's even less. It's 60 days. So, you know, if stuff like that concerns you at the end of the pre-existing condition coverage, wherever you're at, buy another policy there. That'll pick up from where this one leaves off. Sure, you might have some expenses and all that, you know, multiple travel policies, but it could be very pricey if you wound up in a hospital overseas. A lot of times in hospitals overseas, from what I've heard and read and been told, the first thing they'll do is take your passport when you're admitted to the hospital so that you cannot leave the country. Best advice, if you're conscious and you can speak to them, well, I've lost my passport, I don't know where it is. You know, I've got a copy, I'll let you have. Try to hold on to your passport if you can, and don't give it to anyone that asks for it, especially the hospitals, because they want their money. They'll take credit card or whatever. But what you want to do is get your insurance involved, and hopefully your insurance can pay direct to the hospital. Some do, some don't, your travel insurance. So it's important, if that's important to you, that you want to just make a claim and have your travel insurance people talk directly to the hospitals over there, how much they'll cover, what's covered. It's good to find out and ask those questions when you get your policy. Do you pay directly to the hospital. A lot of them will just pay you after you submit all the claims and they approve it, all the faxes, emails, all that, and then you eventually get some money back that you can pass on to the hospital. That could take a while, but in the meantime you're held captive in a country and they've got your passport and you can't go anywhere. So anyway, that's it for me on travel insurance. If you have any questions or concerns, put them down in the comments below. I'll be flying out in about 20 more days. Feel free to like, follow, and share, and I'll be posting a lot more once I get to Japan. So been good talking to you again. Keep up with my channel. I'll be also posting a link to some other platforms that I have where you can follow me on, and I look forward to seeing you in Japan. See ya.